Thank you so much for joining today to learn more about how to win construction bids with drone mapping. The agenda we're going to go through is talking a little bit about just the basics of drone mapping, then get into the meat of the topic. We're going to be joined today by Dick Zhang, the CEO of Identify Technologies. We'll have a dedicated Q&A at the end, but you can also kind of send questions over at any point during the talk. Everything's fair game. And then we'll talk about what the onboarding process looks like. And we have an offer just today, just for live attendees of this webinar. For submitting questions, with GoToWebinar, you're going to see a little bar with an arrow on it. If you tap that arrow, just like in this diagram, and then you can fill in whatever questions you might have in the question bar below, and we'll address as many as we have time for. So for the intro, you're seeing drone mapping used for a wide variety of different industries. Mining for things like tracking stockpile inventory for aggregates, and also just general mine planning and mine progress. For construction, particularly in horizontal construction like earth moving, mining, highway construction, anything where you're moving big amounts of earth, drone mapping is perfect for. For oil and gas, you see it in things like well pads, impoundment ponds, pipeline construction. And then for landfills, it's used both for the actual landfill construction process and then actually to optimize how the airspace is filled to make sure that they're not exceeding the capacity, but that they're maximizing everything they have. And then also within engineering and surveying, just as tools to gather the same data they've always gathered, but do it more quickly, more affordably, and more efficiently. In terms of how the drone mapping process works, with Identified, you select your flight plan on a tablet. You activate the drone, which literally just means hitting a button. The data is automatically processed, and then you'll be able to access and analyze your job site. And then from there, you can make data-driven, informed management decisions for the project and optimize your results accordingly. The slogan we like to use is, "We do everything for you, but push the start button on the drone," and that's very much true. So that takes us to the meat of today's topic. How do you win more construction bids using drone mapping? And this is going to be helpful whether you're already a customer and using drones today, or you're just looking out for opportunities down the road, considering what's possible. So for the basics of what does construction bidding look like? Well, it's a process that contractors and or construction companies go through of creating and submitting a proposal to manage a construction project. The proposal includes a cost estimate from blueprints. And the most common problems that we see in bidding and how we can help are that traditional bidding is slow, it's dangerous, it's costly, it's inaccurate, and it's ineffective. It's slow because either you don't have all the information or you're usually sending out a manual survey team to capture it. Dangerous because they may be dodging heavy equipment or dealing with hazardous terrain. And inaccurate and ineffective because if you don't do that, you're stuck using old, out-of-date data, which is often wrong. So how we feel and what that leads to is it forces companies to build huge margins of error into their bids because they don't know really how much work it's going to be and what it's going to cost them in terms of time, equipment, and labor to get it done. Because on public bids, it's usually just the low bid wins. The bigger your buffer is, the lower the chance that you're going to be that low bid. And the smaller your buffer is, unfortunately, the less profit you're going to make. So all of these obviously lead to lower than ideal percentages of won bids for every bid you put out. And what we help with is eliminating that guesswork. So now you don't have to build in a 10 to 30% variability just because you don't know. You can really tighten things up. You're no longer forced to lose because you built way too much padding in and someone else swings under you, or you are the low bid and unfortunately it's not profitable. So instead of dealing with old, out-of-date maps, we're actually going to give you immediate access to the real job site. So this is an example of a contour map. Um, and this lines up what was in the bid package with actually the job that was done. And we got a good quote from John Mackin, a project manager at Mascaro who we've worked with. He said there was actually a discrepancy from what we ended up finding out on site with what the real topography was from the drawings. And that's something that we could have captured early on had we been using Identified at that time. So this was before they started with us. We would have been able to address the situation with the owner. And unfortunately now we're in a situation where we're dealing with discrepancies in quantity and cost and something that could have been avoided by using the technology. Um, and I believe they ended up basically eating a 20% difference in the volume of work that needed to be done that, again, could have been avoided had everyone been on the same page on what the real project required. So how else can drone mapping help construction bidding? Because it's actually even bigger than that. It's a safer, faster, more efficient, more accurate way to gather the data. If you send out a manual survey team on a large job site, it could take easily weeks to gather all the data. And unfortunately, on a fast moving job site, by the time you get that data back weeks later, it's already wrong because the job site's changed. And if you've been investing time or money or resources into projects that are off, that's time wasted that you will never get back. So we deeply increase the transparency of these projects. That's useful for you as a company for managing your team, subcontractors, reporting to leadership and stakeholders. So this is a screenshot of SiteIQ. It's our primary tool at Identify Technologies, and this is something we use called change detection technology. And Brent, who's a group mine engineer, said inaccuracies are a big deal. Now we have control over the data that gets collected. We have an easier interface to check on the data, and that helps us develop better relationships with contractors because we can reduce ambiguity. So now everyone's actually looking at the same numbers on the same page and can have an informed conversation. You're not just sitting there eyeballing it or having a he said, she said. And in terms of how it helps you underbid, it's not just knowing your real job site, it's also giving you a much better idea of your real operational costs as a company and reducing your operational costs as a company. Not only can you survey the land before you place the bid, get a good read on the work that needs done, and do it quickly with survey grade accuracy, but you also have situations where there's sometimes less material. And I'm actually going to let Dick jump in real quickly because I know that's something he's talked to customers about firsthand.
Yeah, thanks, Barry. I just to add really quickly, I've actually been in these meetings live before where we get the original topo, it's in the bid package, it's the same bid package and same original surface that all the contractors got as part of the bid, and they just happen to take their drone out and gather the topo beforehand, and realize there was actually way less dirt than than what was advertised in some, I don't know, 20 or 30-year-old topo. And so they were able to show basically a prospect that that there was a lot less work to be done than what they had advertised. Show exactly where they were going to have the savings, and two, came in with a much more competitive bid than pretty much everybody else. So in those scenarios where there's less work, it's a surefire win.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the scenarios where there's more work, sort of the tangible value here is that we're de-risking these projects by understanding how much more work there is than what we really signed up to do. So de-risking is a big part of all of this for sure.
Thank you, Dick. This shows an as-built versus as-planned on a bridge construction project. Again, this is in SiteIQ. And another quote from John Mackin. SiteIQ is a great tool for quality control, reporting, and measuring cut and fills. So for quality assurance, you're making sure that the project's done right. You're showing the customer that, you're showing leadership that. And you can quickly capture and share permanent records and avoid quantity and cost discrepancies with clients. It's especially valuable for large areas that might be hard for an individual to access, such as elevated areas or difficult terrain. And I've been on jobs where you literally can't see from one end of the job site to the other. So to be able to have a holistic view of the whole project, how things are progressing, what your rate of progress um, is not only invaluable, but it's impossible to get any other way. And the other thing, we've talked a lot about giving you the information on how much work, what volume of earth, let's say, needs to be moved. But the other area where we can be really helpful is actually helping you track and optimize that progress on the job. So if you said before it would have cost you $1 to do the job, maybe you can get that down to 90 cents just by having much more clear understanding of the work and being much more responsive if anything goes off base. So now, once the job is done, you can track your real progress and costs. You know your real profitability for things like per acre cleared or cost per yard of earth moved, and how that varies with, let's say, different rock strata. And that can help inform your bids for the future to make sure that you're making low enough bids to win it, but also still high enough to be comfortably profitable. And you're able to drive transparency with all the people you're collaborating with, all the stakeholders, all the way from subcontractors up to leadership. It also helps you catch problems earlier, address misunderstandings, invoice faster, and speed up cash flow. So, in terms of the invoicing, well, actually, it sounds like Dick has another story on this. So, Dick, can you speak to invoicing?
Yeah, there's different ways to think about it. I've heard, the concept of time value and value earned over the course of these projects. But generally, again, the big trend we see here is there's lots of opacity and actual work done, actual value earned. Um, and typically we see it impact the cash flows of our customers, where because they're unsure about really how much work was done, because they know that there's a quote unquote smudge factor in actual pay yards versus fluffed up yards in the back of a haul truck. The good ones will typically push back their invoicing and their cash flows. Maybe the less experienced or more aggressive ones will try to invoice up front, but it creates huge risk in the actual cash flow of the business, because you got expenses going out, and we really can't afford to be invoicing too much too soon and then run dry the end of the project, and we can't afford to to hold off on these payments till the very last day or the very last quarter of the project. So basically, these folks are running the drone every week, every 2 weeks, running their quantities off these off these topos. We'll basically export the quantities, the cut fills right out of the right out of site IQ here, and submit that for billing, and know that they're submitting very accurate quantities based off the actual pay yards on the ground.
I know one thing our customers have mentioned is they're basically halfway through the project. They're popping champagne, they're celebrating because it's going so well, they're so profitable, but they just don't have actually an accurate measure of how far they've progressed. And then at the end, they end up losing money on it, just because they they didn't realize how much they had left to go. So this gives you that real picture. Had a good quote from Andy Rhodes, a customer at Kokosing, does huge heavy contracting projects. And he said once a month or once every 2 weeks, our owner pays us according to what we think we moved traditionally. And I've had jobs every year where we've studied box data, studied different things that affect those numbers of what we're hauling, our hauling capacity. And we look at every job individually and say, okay, I think we're going to be able to haul this much in this truck. That's what I think. But we maybe get to the end and we've been overpaid up front, and now we're doing the rest of the work for free because we've already received our income and the material is not moved yet. And we've had the flip side where we adjusted those factors, and all of a sudden we get to the end and all types of pay quantity left, but the material's already moved. So this just lets us know, where are we really at? Having that accuracy is more important than you can imagine. And if you do have that ability where someone's on site with a drone and all of a sudden you're getting that real-time confirmation with exactly what we're moving, exactly what we're reporting, and we're being paid exactly for the work that's been done. And this the last big area that I want to speak to, that's a lie. Second to last big area I want to speak to is profitability on future bids. So this is our tracking cut fill tool, screenshot from SiteIQ. And what this lets you do is actually see a chart showing how the project's been progressing over time, how much you still have to go to hit your goal. And this can be really useful for any kind of three-dimensional moving project. And quote from Jason Tazi, another customer construction technology coordinator at iPlusIcon USA. And he said, we're tracking the same areas week to week, and we make comparisons to the finished ground and the existing ground. We have all of that recorded data. This helps us when we're submitting payments and allows us to understand the work we've done. The biggest impact by far for us is that ability to get that immediate snapshot of the project in real time. At 1 p.m. on a given day, we know exactly what the project looks like, the 3D models, the volumes extracted, allowing us to understand the number of resources used between one point in time and another point in time. Give us a much more accurate depiction of the costs associated with those volumes. And then moving forward with that library of information, we're able to make much more accurate bids on projects. So now, not only are you able to optimize your workflow and reduce your costs, which will obviously help you be more profitable, but you know what your real costs are. You don't have to build in a 30% buffer of just unknowns. You know what your real cost per yard is, or your cost per acre cleared is. And with that, you can make really confident, informed decisions that are going to be under competitive bids. So it's building out that internal reference library, but that's actually not only useful internally, so you know what you're capable of, it's actually also useful externally in terms of how you market yourself. You can show your library of past work not only to, let's say, a new estimator, where now you can take them through hundreds of jobs that you've completed, show them what your real costs were, how they vary per job, give them that reference library, and allow them to gather data in probably months of training that would normally require decades of experience. But you can also show your library of past work to potential customers on similar projects to market your proven capabilities and differentiate yourself through your technology leadership. So, well, I understand if it's a public project, the low bid wins. But if it's a private project, they may choose you because they're confident in your work and that you're the company to get it done. So when you can actually show them a 3D model of a similar project, show them how it progressed over time, have that solid reference, nothing beats that. So, quote from Phil Schumacher, he's a VP of operations at Bentley. He said, this is a tremendous marketing tool for us. We work with some big companies where the VP doesn't get out to the site very often. The ability to show potential clients before and after 3D graphics of our work gives them more confidence than describing it on a conference call ever could. Now, we're not just asking them to take our word for it, we're bringing the real project right to them. And the quote I'll end with, this is Katie Spear, the VP of Marketing at Infrastructure and Industrial Contractors USA. She said, this really helps when we reach out to current and future customers who haven't used drone mapping themselves or have never had construction companies use it on their projects. We're able to show them what they're missing, show them the benefits of the information that we can provide to them, and how we can deliver a solution to them that is a very good fit for solving their problems. So hopefully this gives you a better high-level understanding of the different ways that drone mapping can be helpful throughout the bidding process, not only in understanding the initial job site, but also reducing your operational costs, understanding what those real costs are, and building out a library both for internal use for more informed bidding and knowing your real costs, and then also for external marketing of your capabilities. In terms of what the onboarding process looks like, if you're interested in learning more, we would sit down with you and our client success team, talk about what your goals are as an organization, what you're trying to achieve with drone mapping. Do you want to digitize your whole operational flow, or do you want to start with kind of a pilot study to get rolling and see the impact? We'll get your team trained, hold your hand through the first flight, help you interpret the data through the charts we showed, make sure you're getting all the insights possible, and then help you actually build it into your standard operating procedures where it's just an everyday part of the job. And you get best-in-class support if anything doesn't go as planned, if you need additional help, or if a function just isn't giving you the information you want. Customer support will help you get it fixed quickly and easily. And whether you need on-the-spot troubleshooting or overtime software enhancement geared to your needs, we'll provide that continuous flow of updates and always be there to help you. You also have a 24/7 support center, things like how to use Site IQ, new feature training, FAA Part 107 certification study guides, step-by-step lists for flight planning, really everything you could want to know whenever you want access to it. Um, that customer success manager will not only be there for your initial training, but you'll also get quarterly check-ins to make sure you're aware of all the new features that we've rolled out in that time, that we're learning about your needs, and if you have any requests for new features, that we're hard at work on them, and just that you're getting all the value that you possibly can out of the business. So in the end, people use identified technologies to help them win more bids, complete more jobs per year, increase their profitability per job, collaborate better with their team, and leave their clients more satisfied. All that helps them reduce delays, reduce surprise costs, reduce rework and overwork, reduce injuries, um, and reduce late and over budget projects. So with that, I want to thank you very much for your time. I put a post in the chat to access our demo if you're interested, or to sign up to win a chance at a free month of drone mapping. So both of those are available. If you don't get to do it now, you can go to our website, and it's at the very bottom right of the website. It's identifiedtech.com. And with that, I will turn it over to Dick to answer questions. You guys can ask anything about different applications, about the technology, about the legality of it. Dick knows more about drone mapping than, you know, well, almost probably anyone else in the world. So all questions are fair game. If we don't know, we'll get you the answer from someone who does. But I'll give you guys a few minutes to let the questions roll in. So I'll give it maybe 2 minutes, and then we'll kick it over to Dick. All right. Thank you all again so much for joining. Dick, we got some great questions. So Dick is going to go through these. If you have more as we're going through, still feel free to submit them. Otherwise, the first question we got, Dick, is how we've seen attitudes towards drone mapping change over the last few years. So if you can speak to that.
Yeah, sure. And I'll answer this from my perspective and my observations about folks in the construction world. Uh, I'd say, like in 2014, 2015, when I went out to these sites with my little hobby drone, people were seriously like, "You are freaking crazy." um, so it was, don't even touch it with a 10-foot pole, was a general trend. And then I'd say over the last, like 2015, 2016, a lot of people started to realize, you know what, hey, there's cool photos and videos we could take. And then really 2016 into 2017, and definitely now in this year, we're seeing this huge uptick in people realizing that one, there's actually high quality data and information we can capture and produce with the drones, and two, there's actually some pretty meaningful business impact because the quality of data has risen so dramatically.
So Dick, I'll just jump in real quick. Can you go deeper on what kind of business impact you're seeing for users?
Yeah, sure. I think broadly, because again, sort of the quality of the data is good and good to the point where we can depend on it as a construction business. I think it all bundles into the concept of de-risking, which ultimately is pretty much the goal of any job site and any firm. But de-risking falls under, again, I'd say the big three classes are winning bids, operating profitably on existing bids, and cash flow. And I know we spoke about all three of these already, but yeah, it's top line, bottom line, and cash are really the three big impacts, and it all falls under the concept of de-risking.
What about, are there common surprises or misunderstandings about drone mapping that you see again and again?
Yeah, I'll say It's ironic the two together. I'll say the first I've seen or have observed is that the people didn't realize how easy it was to actually capture data with a drone. And with all the majority of the flight planning apps out there, you literally hit a button and it's off to the races. It's doing its own thing. It's thinking, and you're really only there for backup. So that's the first observation. I'll say the second, probably biggest surprise is how complex it is to use a drone here as a data capture tool. And what I mean by this, because the first point I meant specifically for the act of flying and data capture. The second point is generally people are quite surprised at just sort of all the steps involved in the workflow to go from a flight plan to actual photos and GPS data to then actual elevations and consumable information.
Got it. So you're not sitting there using a joystick. The drone basically flies itself, but it's everything after that that's so challenging.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. And then the last question is just where do we see drone mapping being used in the future? How do the capabilities likely change, and how does that impact business operating procedures?
Yeah, I would say going into the future, the two common themes, actually quite similar to, if you think about Amazon's operating principle, it's speed and cost. um, I'd say here the two main operating principles are speed and quality. And so, going from a traditional aerial where your turnaround time was easily on the order of weeks, if not months, to now turnaround time with an end-to-end drone solution being easily less than half a day. We'll continue. It's a massive drop already, and there will, of course, be decreasing marginal returns, but we'll continue to see that drop in I think, a pretty aggressive way. And then the second, of course, is quality, where we've now met the minimum quality requirements for data to be applicable in the construction business. But I think as you get, you go from the 2 inch to the 1 inch to the half-inch to the tenth of an inch, type accuracy ranges, you'll see the opportunity for use cases and value dramatically open up.
Perfect. Dick, thank you very much for sharing your insights with us today. Everyone in the audience, we really appreciate your time. We know you could be anywhere in the world right now, and you appreciate you spend your afternoon with us. If you have any follow-up questions, please reach out through identifiedtech.com. You can hit the contact us form, download other webinars or case studies, or get a free demo to see our Site AQ software in action and learn more about how it could fit in with your business. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you.